He found out I cheated. In our own bed. Now he's pretending I don't exist. And won't even explain why. I never thought I'd be that woman, you know the one. The one who sets fire to everything good in her life over something so breathtakingly stupid. My name is Alara. I'm 32 years old. And I'm still trying to understand how I managed to detonate my entire world in the span of a single afternoon. When Reese and I first met 6 years ago, it wasn't like fireworks or a scene from a movie. It was better. It was quiet, certain, like finding a piece of yourself you didn't even know was missing. He was a landscape architect, a man who built beautiful, calm spaces for a living, and that's what he built for me too. A life of serene, dependable love. We moved in together after only 8 months. It just made sense. 2 years later, we bought this charming little house with blue shutters on the edge of the suburbs. It was our sanctuary, our forever place, and honestly, everyone thought we were perfect. Our friends, our families, they looked at us like we were the blueprint. I thought we were perfect too. Reese was everything my chaotic ex-boyfriends weren't. He was stable, thoughtful. He'd remember the name of my annoying coworker and ask about them a week later. He'd leave a cup of coffee on my nightstand on the mornings he had to leave early. He never complained when I wanted to binge-watch terrible reality shows for an entire Saturday. He'd just curl up beside me and make fun of the contestants. But after about 4 years, things started to feel different. The quiet certainty I once cherished began to feel like silence. The beautiful, calm space he'd built started to feel like a cage. I don't know when it happened, exactly. It wasn't a single event. It was a slow fade, a gradual erosion of color until everything was just beige. The routine became a rut. Reese would come home from work, kiss me on the cheek, a dry, familiar peck, and we'd fall into the same pattern every single night. Dinner, TV, bed, lather, rinse, repeat. The spark, that little jolt of excitement I used to feel just hearing his car pull into the driveway, it was just gone. And if I'm being truly honest with myself, the effort started to fade on his end, too. The surprise little gifts, just because became birthday-only occasions. Date nights turned into takeout and Netflix. Our conversations, once filled with dreams and laughter, now revolved around bills and whose turn it was to take out the recycling. He was there, but he wasn't there, and neither was I. My friends, Tessa and Genevieve, certainly noticed. "You're settling, Alara," Tessa would say during our girls' nights, swirling her wine. "You're still young. You need to experience life before you're locked down forever." Easy for her to say. She was single and her Instagram was a dizzying collage of cocktails and clubs, a different city every other weekend. Meanwhile, Genevieve, on her third marriage, acted like she was some kind of relationship guru. A woman has needs, honey. If your man isn't meeting them, it's not your fault. You deserve to be happy. Their words were like water dripping on a stone. At first I ignored them, but over time they started to wear me down. They started to echo my own secret, terrifying thoughts. Was I missing out? Was this really all there was to life? Predictable evenings with a man who barely looked up from his phone when I walked into the room. A man I loved, but wasn't in love with anymore. And that's when Julian started at the office. God, Julian. He was everything Reese wasn't in that moment. He was exciting, attentive, and he was very, very clearly interested in me. It started innocently enough. Of course, it always does. "That's a great color on you, Alara," Julian would say as I passed his desk. He'd laugh at all my dumb jokes during team meetings, his eyes lingering on mine just a second too long. He'd actually listen when I talked about my day, asking follow-up questions instead of just nodding with a vacant stare. I told myself it was just nice to feel seen again. Appreciated. Just a harmless workplace friendship, that's all it was. But then came the texting. It started with work stuff. A question about a project file sent after hours. Then it bled into the weekend. A meme he thought I'd find funny. Then, it went deeper. Dreams, disappointments, desires, things I hadn't talked about with Reese in years. I found myself getting ready differently on mornings I knew I'd see him. I wore the dress he'd complimented. I checked my phone constantly, my heart doing a stupid little flip every time his name lit up the screen. I was alive again, feeling that intoxicating rush I hadn't felt in so long. I confided in Genevieve over brunch one Sunday, carefully editing the story to make myself sound like the innocent victim of a dull relationship and an attractive new colleague. "You deserve to be happy," she told me, placing her hand over mine. "Reese is clearly not giving you what you need." She didn't explicitly tell me to cheat, but she didn't tell me not to, either. And in her silence, I found permission. Maybe I do deserve more excitement. Maybe I'm too young to feel this settled. I started making excuses to stay late at work. Project deadlines, I'd text Reese. I started telling him I was meeting the girls when I was really meeting Julian for drinks. It was just talking at first, I swear. Just talking. But the way he looked at me, the way he hung on my every word, it made me feel 23 again. Electric. Wanted. The first time Julian kissed me was in his car after happy hour. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked windshield. For a moment, a wave of guilt so powerful it almost made me sick washed over me. I told myself it was a mistake. A one-time only lapse in judgment that would never, ever happen again. But it did. And each time, it got easier to justify. Reese is emotionally unavailable. Reese takes me for granted. Reese wouldn't even notice if I was getting my needs met elsewhere. He's so wrapped up in his own world. Every lie I told myself chipped away another piece of the foundation I'd built with Reese, until I was standing on nothing but rubble. I never planned to bring it into our home. That was the one line, the one sacred boundary I thought I wouldn't cross. But looking back, I was already crossing lines left and right. What was one more? And, honestly, I think a dark, twisted part of me wanted to get caught. Maybe then Reese would finally wake up. Maybe then he'd realize he needed to fight for me. Maybe then he'd see what he stood to lose. It's sickening to think about now, how profoundly selfish I was. The day everything fell apart started like any other Tuesday. Reese texted me in the morning. "Hey, going to be working late tonight. Big project deadline, don't wait up for me." It was the perfect opportunity. The ultimate thrill. The ultimate validation that I was desirable, exciting, worth breaking all the rules for. My hands trembled slightly as I texted Julian. "Change of plans. Instead of the bar, come to my place." He agreed immediately. When Julian arrived, a knot of guilt and excitement churned in my stomach. This was my home with Reese, our sanctuary, our shared space, filled with photos from our vacations, stupid inside jokes manifested as refrigerator magnets, the worn-out armchair that was his spot. But the thrill, the intoxicating thrill of doing something so forbidden, it quickly pushed the guilt aside. Julian brought wine. One glass turned into 3 as we sat on the couch, inching closer with each sip. The air crackled with unspoken things. "I want to see your bedroom," he said eventually, his voice a low murmur as he tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear. I hesitated. For just a second. A flicker of Reese's face flashed in my mind. But I silenced it. I pushed it down, deep down. This was about me feeling alive again. Right? I led him upstairs, my heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and the faintest warning bell in the back of my mind. The moment Julian and I entered the bedroom, everything outside that room ceased to exist. Not my relationship, not my commitment to Reese, not the life we had built together, piece by careful piece. Just the intoxicating present, the validation I'd been craving, the raw excitement of something new and dangerous. As clothes came off and we fell onto the bed, my bed, mine and Reese's bed, I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was only thinking about how good it felt to be wanted so intensely again. I didn't hear the front door open. I didn't hear the footsteps on the stairs. I didn't notice anything until much later, when Julian had left and I was alone, straightening the crumpled duvet and erasing the evidence of what had just happened there. Convinced I had gotten away with it. When Reese actually came home, not just the phantom arrival, I had somehow convinced myself I'd imagined he was different. He was quiet, distant, a stranger in our own home. He barely looked at me when I greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, my body acting on autopilot as if everything was normal. "How was work?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. I could feel the guilt radiating off me like heat. Was it written all over my face? "Fine," he replied. The single word fell between us like a stone. He didn't elaborate, didn't ask about my day. He just grabbed a beer from the fridge and disappeared into the spare room where he kept his computer. I told myself he was just stressed about his project. Maybe things hadn't gone well at work. Maybe he was just tired. Any explanation was better than the one screaming in the back of my mind. But as the evening progressed, his coldness only intensified. It was a tangible thing, a drop in temperature in every room he entered. He didn't join me for dinner, saying he wasn't hungry. He didn't sit next to me on the couch for our usual TV time. When I finally went to bed, the sheets still faintly smelling of Julian's cologne that I'd frantically tried to air out, Reese didn't follow. "I'll probably crash in the guest room," he said from the doorway, not looking at me. "Don't want to disturb you with my tossing and turning." He had never done that before. Not once in 6 years. The next morning was even worse. Reese was up and dressed before I even woke up, which never happened. I was always the early riser. I found him in the kitchen, staring into a coffee mug like it held the answers to the universe. And then he spoke. And the words he said turned my blood to ice. "I want to break up, Alara." He said it so flatly. No emotion, not looking at me, just a simple, devastating statement of fact. "What? Why? What are you talking about?" I stammered, my mind racing, genuinely confused by the suddenness of it all. It didn't make sense. Had he somehow found out? No. That was impossible. He was at work when Julian was here. He couldn't know. He couldn't. "I just do," he said, finally looking up. His eyes were empty, blank. "I need you to move out by next week. I'll stay with a friend until then." No explanation, no anger, no tears, no emotion at all, really. Just this cold, detached decision that felt like a surgical incision. I started crying then, sobbing, begging him to talk to me, to tell me what was wrong, what I had done. But he wouldn't engage. It was like arguing with a wall of granite. "You can't just end 6 years without telling me why," I shouted, my voice cracking as he walked away, grabbing his keys and wallet. He paused at the door. "I don't owe you an explanation, Alara." And then he was gone, leaving me standing alone in our kitchen, completely baffled and shattered by what had just happened. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't face Julian. I couldn't face anyone. I called Reese repeatedly, but the calls went straight to voicemail. I texted him novels, alternating between anger and pleading and declarations of love. Nothing. Not a single reply. It was like he had simply decided I didn't exist anymore. I wasn't going to accept that. I needed answers. And I was going to get them, even if I had to ambush him in our own house. So instead of leaving the next day like he'd asked when he texted to say he was coming by for some things, I waited for him. I sat on the couch, my heart hammering against my ribs, rehearsing what I would say. When he walked through the door at exactly 2 p.m. and saw me sitting there, his expression went completely blank, a void. "I asked you not to be here," he said, his voice devoid of any inflection. "This is my house, too," I countered, my voice stronger than I felt. "And I deserve to know what's going on. Why are you doing this to me? Why won't you just talk to me?" Reese stared at me for a long, silent moment, like he was trying to decide if I was worth the energy of a response. Finally, he spoke. His voice was eerily calm. "You really want to know why, Alara? Fine." He took a step closer. "I came home early last week. The project finished ahead of schedule. I wanted to surprise you. The world stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped. Reese, I don't. He cut me off, his voice sharp for the first time. Don't. Don't you dare try to explain it or justify it. There is absolutely nothing you could say that would matter. But we can work through this, I said desperately, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. People make mistakes. Couples recover from affairs all the time. He laughed. But there was no humor in it. It was a hollow, broken sound. You brought him to our home, Alara, to our bed. The bed we share. While I was supposedly at work, he shook his head slowly, a look of profound disgust on his face. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Multiple choices, actually. One after another. He was right. Of course, he was right. But I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that 6 years could end just like that. I'll do anything, I pleaded, following him as he started walking upstairs. Therapy, whatever you want. I never meant to hurt you. Things were they were stale between us. I felt ignored. So you discussed that with me like an adult, right? He asked, his voice dripping with a sarcasm so bitter it burned. You told me you were unhappy and gave me a chance to fix things? Oh, wait. No. You decided to sleep with someone else in our bed instead. There was nothing I could say to that. No defense that wouldn't sound pathetic and selfish and utterly hollow. I watched, helpless, as he packed a suitcase with cold, efficient movements. As he headed for the door, I made one last desperate attempt. My voice was a whisper. So that's it. 6 years? Just gone? You're not even going to try? Reese paused, his hand on the doorknob. He turned his head slightly, but he didn't look at me. I already tried, Ilara. For years. You were the one who decided it wasn't enough. And then he was gone. I collapsed onto the floor, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing in the sudden, crushing silence. And for the first time, I finally understood the full, catastrophic magnitude of what I had done. The next 2 weeks were a blur of cardboard boxes and shame. I had to find a new apartment, pack up 6 years of a shared life, and avoid the pitying or judgmental looks of neighbors who had clearly heard something. The carefully constructed narrative I'd told my friends that Reese had broken up with me out of nowhere was crumbling as the truth began to leak out. I temporarily moved in with Tessa, the only friend still firmly on my side, though even she seemed uncomfortable when I finally confessed what had actually happened. You brought him to your house? She asked, wincing. Wow. That's pretty bad, Alara. I know, I whispered, the words barely audible. Acknowledging the depth of my betrayal out loud made it feel sickeningly real. I tried calling Reese's sister, Jenna. She had always liked me, always been on my side. But her voice on the phone was ice. Stop calling everyone Alara, she told me. It's over. Accept it and move on. But why won't anyone tell me what I did wrong? I cried, still clinging to some shred of delusional hope. There was a long, heavy pause on the other end of the line. Are you seriously asking that question? Jenna finally responded, her voice laced with disbelief. Because if you are, that's even worse than what you actually did. The call ended. I stood in Tessa's spare room, surrounded by my boxes, completely stunned. Julian had been texting me constantly. Why aren't you at work? Is everything okay? I'd been avoiding him, too overwhelmed to deal with our complicated, sordid situation. But now I wondered if he was somehow connected to all this beyond the obvious. Had he said something? I finally agreed to meet him for coffee, a desperate need for information overriding my nausea. When I saw him at the cafe, looking concerned but also excited to see me, I felt sick to my stomach. What had seemed thrilling just days ago now felt hollow and cheap. What's going on? He asked after I'd briefly explained that Reese and I were having problems. I don't know, I lied, the truth too humiliating to admit. He just suddenly wants to break up and won't tell me why. Did you tell anyone about us? Julian looked offended. Of course not. That was our business. Our business. As if what we'd done was some legitimate, reasonable transaction. Maybe this is a good thing, he suggested, reaching for my hand across the table. His touch felt like a brand. Now we don't have to sneak around. I pulled my hand away as if I'd been burned. I need to figure things out with Reese first, I said. His expression changed, hardened slightly. Sounds like he's already made up his mind. I left the cafe feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Julian wasn't the answer to anything. He was just a symptom of my own dissatisfaction, my own catastrophic selfishness. I went home and blocked his number. Genevieve, who had been so supportive of my needs before, now barely returned my calls. I was toxic. I was a pariah. I was utterly, completely alone. 6 months. That's how long it's been. 6 months since my life imploded. I found a tiny studio apartment I can barely afford in a part of town I don't know. I found a new job that pays less because I couldn't face going back to my old office, couldn't face the whispers, couldn't face the ghost of Julian and the memory of what our harmless flirtation had cost me. My life is in boxes I still haven't fully unpacked. Sometimes, late at night, I drive by our old house. The blue shutters look the same. I wonder if he still lives there. I wonder if the memories are too painful for him, too. I wonder about the woman he's seeing now. Oh, yes. There's someone new. I found out last month. I ran into our mutual friend Chris at the grocery store. I hadn't seen any of them since the breakup. Hey, I said awkwardly. Oh, hi, Alara, he replied, his eyes darting away, clearly uncomfortable. How are you? How's Reese? I couldn't help asking. The question felt like swallowing glass. Chris hesitated. He's doing better, actually. Got a promotion at work. Moved to a new place downtown. That's good, I said, trying to sound sincere despite the acid jealousy burning in my chest. Reese was moving on, thriving even, while I was stuck here, in limbo. He's seeing someone too, Chris added, and then immediately looked like he regretted saying it. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have. No, it's okay, I interrupted, though it felt like he'd just punched me in the stomach. I'm glad he's happy. As Chris walked away, I stood frozen in the cereal aisle, a box of Reese's favorite cereal in my hand, the one I'd automatically reached for out of a 6-year habit. He had moved on. Completely. New job, new home, new girlfriend. And here I was, still clinging to the broken pieces of our old life, still harboring a foolish, secret hope for a second chance that was never, ever going to come. The reality finally hit me. There was no going back. No fixing what I had broken. Reese was right. He doesn't owe me an explanation or closure or forgiveness. I'm the one who made the choice. Who prioritized a fleeting moment of excitement over a lifetime of love. Who believed I deserved more without ever putting in the work to create it within my own relationship. Now, I'm alone in my small apartment, scrolling through social media. A picture pops up. It's from a mutual friend's wedding I wasn't invited to. And there he is. Reese. He's laughing, his head tilted back. And next to him is a woman, her head on his shoulder. They look happy. He looks happy. And I'm still here, haunted by what I threw away, trying to convince myself that someday this hollow feeling in my chest will go away. That someday I'll stop waking up in the middle of the night, reaching for someone who isn't there, and never will be again. He found out I cheated in our own bed. And now he's pretending I don't exist. And the worst part is, I don't blame him one bit.